I really liked the first Outlast. Really, it even surprised me. Sure, it took a lot of inspiration from games like Amnesia and bumped up the terror, gore and nudity, and Amnesia is way more classy, clever and subtle than Outlast of course, but it was still pretty good. Being unarmed and confronted with mutated, possessed maniacs in an asylum was more fun than I've ever imagined. I even have the Whistleblower DLC, which was already much worse than the original. You see, the original was riding a fine line, while being very brutal, gory and kind of disturbing at some points, but the DLC just crossed into disgusting and forced the player to watch a rather long torture scene. I hoped that the sequel would course correct. I hoped it could catch the spirit of the original. I hoped it would be gruesome fun and have an engaging story. But that was not the case. I've already heard a lot of bad things about Part 2, but the reviews were still quite good, so I checked it out. Blake and his wife Lynn are journalists who investigate the murder of an unknown pregnant woman in a rural area of Arizona. While flying with a helicopter over the area, they suddenly crash.
From when we were kids? Oh yeah, I haven't... Fuck!
Blake and his camera surprisingly survive. Well, I think he has a Sony camera, just like I have it, and I also dropped it once. It still works, but the lid of the battery and SD card fell off and I can't find it anymore. I also dropped the PS4 camera that didn't belong to me, and the PS3 camera a couple of times, and my phone, and laptop. But the last two things are not made by Sony and they don't really work anymore. Jeez, I'm really clumsy, I should maybe stop drinking. Blake walks to the nearby town, which is unfortunately inhabited by a cult of deranged Christian fanatics, led by Papa North. Blake is soon chased by a thin, tall lady with a giant pickaxe, which looks like she could be knocked out and killed easily, but Blake seems to be too much of a pussy to fight. But more about that later. Blake is soon also attacked by some of the villagers and seeks refuge by a former member of the cult. We learn that he is the father of the murdered woman, and he asks if we saw her.
You're him, ain't you? The outsider. No, so they killed you, didn't they? No. Not yet. Well, they'll do it if they
Oh
find
yeah,
you
the
here.
main character in this game talks.
Come on.
He's not silent like in the first one, and he's a bit annoying. Not terrible, but not great either.
And which side are you on?
I mean, why ain't I trying to kill you? Get some stories. I've been gifted with talk my whole life. You probably noticed.
Jane Doe,
Sorry?
your daughter. She was 8 months pregnant, blonde hair, cut like a boy's.
Yeah. What do you know? You seen her?
It's why we came here.
Is she alright? Please, mister, just tell me she's okay.
She's fine.
Oh, and he lies to the man. Of course, the old man also dies soon, and we try to find Lynn before something terrible happens. The fanatics here are basically the children of the corn in reverse. Cult is killing children and seemingly pregnant women. The father seems to think that every child is the Antichrist, and pregnancy is a sin, and will lead to the Antichrist, or some stupid shit like that. He also seems to molest the women of the cult.
Take your penance.
We find Lynn eventually, but then another faction attacks.
Stay back! We'll be gentle. I swear to fucking Christ, the first person who touches me loses their eyes. God, no! God, no!
God wants the child. God wants the child.
Get off me! Get off me!
God wants the
Lynn!
child.
Lynn! No, you...
No! No!
You motherfuckers!
No!
Get off me! You leave her alone! Leave her alone! Lynn! Lynn! Fuck you!
Yeah, I don't know either what's happening at the moment, but I think we will learn about it later. For now we will go to the church nearby to try to find Lynn. We hear noises and screams, but we have to find a way in. Finally we do and observe a torture scene from a bad spot, where we hardly see anything. But that's okay for me. Remembering the torture scene from the DLC, this is much better and we get at least some story here.
Let her go! Oh God, Mary, I'm sorry. I didn't want...
God hates vanity. So do I. The outsider woman has this world's destruction in her womb. But Val and his apostates stole away the unborn enemy. The fiend's father has escaped. She will bear... No!
From here on, we basically try to find a way to the mine, because Lynn seems to be there. We learn that a group of disfigured animalistic people are another cult that seems to be even more insane.
God doesn't love you. Not like I do.
And led by another tall woman, I think. Blake then encounters them in the forest, or at least I thought it was the other cult that he encountered, but it seems that another kind of faction, some syphilis-infected outcast of the Christian cult, led by Master Blaster, is here.
Praise God. Forgive me, Lord. But I have no shame.
Blake even gets nailed to a cross and then sets himself free. Wait, what? I call bullshit on that. I think he should fall from the cross because his hands rip, or his weight would pull him out while he was on top of the cross. I can't even put a picture on a wall without the whole thing falling down to the ground with the nail. How is this possible with a human? Well, whatever, Blake has to find his camera now. While getting the camera back, we also get hunted by Master and Blaster, and that's bullshit. Who played it knows what I'm talking about, especially that scene. I mean, here he kills us with one shot immediately, as soon as he spots us. How is that even possible? Especially in the area before, he can hardly hit us with the arrow. But now it's an immediate death. But in the end he gets what he deserves. Stupid syphilist I mean little person. Yeah, and fuck you too, you fucking giant. We continue our journey to the mine and also have some increasingly disturbing hallucinations. In these hallucinations we are in the school and are looking for a girl called Jessica, who makes disturbing hangman drawings. We are also chased by a monster made out of tongs and hands. Eventually we find the mine and are chased and attacked by the more animalistic cult. We have to find a way to Blake's wife Lynn while encountering enemies that are getting more and more aggressive. While being chased by these monsters, we eventually find the leader of the animalistic cult again, while we are stumbling into an orgy. Yeah, you heard right, there's an orgy. And Blake gets assaulted. It's Fear 2 all over again. It's terrible. This leads to another hallucination that clears things up a bit, even though everything was pretty heavily implied already. While being in the school at night, Blake and Jessica are caught by a priest, who wants to punish Jessica for this and sends Blake away, heavily implying that he will assault her. Side note, you cannot go into the room. You cannot prevent what happens or make a decision. Believe me, I tried to get to the door. I looked for another way in and waited a bit next to the door, to see if something can happen. It doesn't. It always goes as follows. He hears screams and now the player can run back and see the priest chasing after Jessica. When young Blake is catching up to him, he finds Jessica dead from a fall down the stairs. And the priest is telling Blake that he will cover it up, and he lets it look like Jessica hanged herself. While reaching for Jessica, Blake comes back to the real world and finds himself in the middle of a massacre. The Christian cult is killing the other cult and are chasing after Blake when they see him. Blake is escaping the mines and finds Lynn, now pregnant to the point of almost giving birth. With a lot of questions but no time, they try to find a safe place. The whole area seems to be in a devastating storm, while they are chased by the woman with the giant pickaxe. They get to a destroyed house, and in the moment that the woman tries to kill them, this happens. We find our way back to the church, and then it's due date. And we see everything, and I mean everything, during the birth. Lynn doesn't survive this though. Blake becomes unconscious, and when he wakes up again, Papanov is sitting there.
That's the child, isn't it? My God. We're taking care of my children. But yours, I am powerless again. The child's too strong already. You've murdered paradise. God has gone silent. Since the storm, the birth. Who will he have if he destroys us all? Who will he have left to punish? I killed my children. All of them. Every last one. There's no more perfect faith than that. And still, God is silent. Kill that child if you can. If you love anything at all, crush its skull under your heel. I know God doesn't hear dead men, but I expect he answers them.
After that, we leave the church and see a devastating loss of life that recalls the events of Jonestown. Everyone is dead, everyone except for us and the baby. And then...
Hey, Blake.
well, that's it, and I have to say that was worse than the first one. I was quite confused at some points, as there's little that we learn about the cult or the events taking place, which could still work, but it just doesn't here.
This way, Blake.
I think that I missed some notes though, or lost some information because I didn't read the religious notes thoroughly after a while. It feels like the story takes place for Lynn while we are looking at the story from a distance, and miss a lot. Don't get me wrong, we get the gist of it, but the characters are rather one-dimensional, and Blake's comments mostly just state the obvious. Story still kept me kind of interested, but I expected more. Gameplay is mostly the same compared to the first one. The camera is your most important tool here. You can zoom, use the night vision for most of the time to see a goddamn thing, and use the microphone to hear the enemies from far away. The camera also needs pretty often new batteries, and Blake can heal himself with bandages when he's hurt. Blake can also have a look at the mission objectives and the batteries and bandages when he looks down. He also can look at the footage that he shot, which is actually the footage the player is recording during certain spots in the game. Recording this footage unfortunately doesn't always work for no apparent reason. Especially later on, I didn't know what I should record, but the camera still recorded, and other times I recorded something, moved the camera slightly, and the recording stopped, and I couldn't start the recording again. Even though I'm pretty sure I had the important things still in focus. Blake can also run, crawl, jump, climb, get through tight spots, and all that. This is important because Blake has to hide from enemies and run away. Of course, we also have to run away from monsters that will kill us when they get to us. And what should I say? These parts are also worse than in the original. Often you will progress after a couple of trials, but it's always trial and error. And sometimes it's just stupid. One of the hallucinations in the school misled me to where I should hide, and it's quite nonsensical. Here in this spot. Question: where would you go? 1. Run to the door and try to escape. 2. Go to the right and try the door there, because you don't trust the girl. 3. Follow the girl wherever she goes. 4. Try something that was not introduced in the game so far, and for which you don't have a clue at this point. I did number 3. Let's see what happens. Tried this a couple of times and then some different things, but nothing worked, so it was of course number 4 that we should do. We have to get to one of the lockers and hide there, in plain sight of the monster. Something that we learned doesn't work at this point in the game. And there are other spots like this. Like a tree that we can suddenly push over to reach another area later on, but only on this certain spot. We also have many situations where we get killed instantly if we don't proceed in a specific way, and that's just annoying. We also often don't know which NPC is attacking us and which one doesn't. Something that we encounter especially in the beginning of the game. Some just look at us while their twin is walking around with a machete and immediately tries to kill us. There are also women with knives who pray and attack us brutally when we are close to them, but usually don't mind us. Let me quickly talk about the atmosphere, even though we are talking about the gameplay at the moment. This time we are in Arizona, and we have a lot of the same mountains, area or forests that we are seeing over and over again. We are also in the mines for a lot of the game actually. What I want to say is that it looks rather boring, for the most part. There are beautiful places here, the school looks pretty good, and so does the ending and some of the river parts, but mostly it's a bit repetitive. Outlast 2 was a letdown after the surprisingly good first part. I can hardly see any improvements in the sequel. The story seems weaker, the presentation is lacking, and it feels try-hard when it's trying to push the boundaries of sex, violence and other taboo topics. But it's not a complete failure. While it's not great, it's still interesting, and you might be pleased if you lower your expectations.
Nothing matters.
Jessica Gray from when we were kids. Oh, yeah. I haven't thought about her in ages.
Hey, we're crossing into reservation land now. You said I'm looking for some sort of factory?
Yeah.
We can look, but there's nothing out here.
Does look pretty empty. All the mercury in that woman's blood, she had to have spent at least a decade downstream from some pretty heavy industry.
If you say so, man, you bought the time.
We should record an intro while we're up here. Production value? Sure. Can't work my diaphragm with this thing on. Audio's gonna be crap. We'll have to... Whoa! The fuck?
Fuck! Sorry about that. Left panel's a little soft, but well, we're good.
That was exciting. Get as much of the landscape behind me as you can. You got me?
Yeah, we're good.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Have a soup pie, have a soup pie. Okay. I'm Lynn Langerman, here for